Welcome to AI for UX. This is a space where UX researchers and product leaders stay current with AI innovations. I'm John Whalen. I'm the founder of Brilliant Experience, and we're a psychology-driven product innovation firm. So personally, I've struggled to keep up with all the new tools for UX and product research, and I'm guessing I'm not alone, and that's why I started this series. In each installment, we speak to a founder of one of the latest AI-enhanced research tools to learn how it might benefit for you, their inspiration, and where the field is overall headed. And just a quick note, these videos are not product endorsements. We pay full price for any technologies we use. No one's getting paid. It's simply the purpose is to learn about new technologies together. So with that, let's get started. Today, I'm happy to introduce Alfred. Alfred Wahlforss is the co-founder of listenlabs.ai. It's a tool that conducts, analyzes, and summarizes qualitative research using AI. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview and talk with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We're really excited to share what we're working on.
Cool. Well, let's dive right into your product. So maybe you can just tell us, in your words, sort of who the target audience is for your product and the sort of pain points that it addresses.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about how it kind of got started,
Mm,
where the inspiration came from, and how it really solved pain points I was having. Because I started a company in my undergrad. I'm originally from Sweden, and I did a ton of user research. So I used surveys for measuring different features, used it for tracking different brand campaigns, and kind of always felt that surveys were lacking. They were great for measuring things, but always leaned a little bit more qualitative. And so then with qualitative research, I would always run into this problem of having, three conversations and not feeling that they might be representative of all of those conversations, of the users. And so, trying to convince my co-founder that we should bet the company on a specific decision was really difficult when you've only had like three
mm,
conversations with customers. And that was the inspiration behind starting Listen Labs. So at Listen Labs, we allow you to interview 1,000 of your customers, and we use AI to do that. And you can ask smart follow-up questions to really get the depth of a qualitative interview, but at a much larger scale. And then kind of we have this agent that can adapt to the conversations and learn across all of those conversations, and then summarize those insights in a way that's easy to digest. So that's what we do.
yeah. Oh no, very cool. And that's why I would loved the getting the opportunity to talk to you and see more. Can you just give me a sense? When do you think what's a typical scenario when people might use this? Is it just for specific questions or discovery or anything? What's your vision?
Yeah. So, anytime you want to understand your customers, we can be useful. And use cases where it works well is things like uh, testing websites or testing prototypes. So classic user testing, but also concept testing. So if you have different advertising you want to test and see not just which advertising is preferred, but also do the customers understand what the advertising represents, and what kind of emotions does it elicit. And so the way I think about it is that surveys are great for understanding what, like the measuring the numbers, and
Hmm.
our product is great for understanding the why. So getting real and thoughtful answers that are deep and allow you to kind of empathize with the customer.
And no, it makes perfect sense. I guess I did want to ask. There are some tools now that are starting to be able to, do unmoderated testing with these follow-up questions. How do you feel like Listen Labs is unique? And I know there's very few of these in the world, but just what is it that makes Listen Labs really special?
Yeah, so we're the first on the market, and we have been building a product that is truly great. On the surface, there's a lot of companies pitching this idea, but then you have to look at the details, like how easy is it to use, how smart are the models behind. So we have kind of fine-tuned a model based on a data set we have collected ourselves of expert interviewers. And that's both on the interviewing side, but also on the analysis. And so, um, you know, what I recommend is, if you're looking to buy such a tool, is look at a couple of providers and compare. And we generally win in any kind of A/B tests that is done.
Thank you. And I guess I also wanted to ask, as a UX researcher in 2022, I would do all the work and all the analysis and all the note taking and all, etc. How do you recommend people work with a tool like yours, and how might their approach differ now that they have this with the scale you've got and the AI tools?
Yeah, so I see it as a new methodology. Just like any other methodology, it's very useful for certain things and not so useful for others. So I do think that there's always going to be a real need for a real, human user researcher. I don't think this is a replacement. This is a complement. And it's useful for things where you need a little bit more scale, where you want to kind of gather the diversity of opinion. And then on the analysis side, we do offer you recommendations, key takeaways, but those recommendations and key takeaways are just going to be the first draft. It's just going to be a way to kind of a framework to use when you're doing your own analysis. And so I think we're always going to need a human to really put all the context and pieces together. And so we don't think we're replacing anyone.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so, are you just so I understand? Are you sort of advocating that or now that we've got a tool like this, we'll be doing much more sort of large scale? I guess it's somewhere in between. It's qualitative and quantitative, right? Is this kind of almost a new category?
Yeah, and I think that if you look at surveys in general, they are kind of stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's uh, it's not a natural way to collect information, and they're mostly a proxy for conversations. And if you can have a conversation, you can ask why, you can dig much deeper. And so we think this will be potentially largely a replacement for some of the more traditional surveys that people run. For example, you can redesign how you ask questions so it's much more natural. And so if you ask in a survey who a person is, you say like, okay, what's your age? And then you have to choose from
Mm-hmm.
10 different buckets. Where are you from? You have to choose from like 100 different countries. And instead, with our platform, you can just ask, describe who you are, and you kind of introduce yourself as you would naturally. And if they don't mention their age, the AI will follow up and ask about the age. And then you can use, on the analysis side, the AI to bucket the ages into the same kind of buckets that you would have gotten from a survey. But you can also get much more detail if you want to. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. And it's cool to think about. So, enough, I think, talking about it. Maybe we can take a moment and you can show us the kinds of things that this is capable of, and maybe just frame, what kind of scenario we're going to see. And I'm happy to work on sharing your screen here for you.
Absolutely. So we conducted a study on our own panel. So we have a integrated panel into our solution that's much more useful for qualitative research. And then we asked our panel about using our tool. And you can kind of use this as a great example of what the output looks like and why you would want to run a study with us. So first of all, here you can see this is a transcript from a real customer who we interviewed. And first, they respond with just one word. And in the second follow-up, they write even more. And it's only in really the third follow-up where they kind of tell their entire story and go into the details into what they really care about. So that's what we see generally, that you kind of have to ask a couple of follow-up questions to make sure we dig into the details that are interesting. In this case, that was a user responding over text, but you can also do this over audio. So I can respond to this myself. Yeah, so I'm doing a couple of different studies. I've done online surveys, but also in-person studies. And here you can see that it mirrors me and doubles down on the question of in-person studies. So you can respond and say, oh yeah, in my university days, to make a quick buck, I would be part of like psychology studies. And that would be an in-person study where I remember one where I had like a lot of noise around me, and then I had to do this cognitive test. So you can see how I'm kind of sharing much more of my story because of the smart follow-up questions. Because in a survey with open ends, you're like, you quite quickly feel that it's repetitive and not so that it's framed in a way that feels unnatural and frankly very boring and tedious to fill out. Whereas this is much more interesting. It's kind of like having a one-on-one conversation.
And Alfred, I wanted to ask you. So, is it? Uh, Sorry, here we go. Is it possible you were mentioning some like brand testing and stuff? So I might be able to present a picture or something like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can present pictures or videos. Um, we do that with a lot of different customers. Um, yeah, so I can show you also what this looks like to create. So it's a semi-structured interview where you provide the questions. You can
Wow.
say like, oh, if they mention that they are from France, then ask this question.
So you're
Did you have a
so,
question?
yeah, actually, just to make sure I'm tracking. So that would be one of the forked things, and it would be that the AI is listening for the specific topic, and if the conditions are appropriate, it will launch into that next branch. Cool.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I
Um,
learned something today, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. Are there other things you wanted to show, or have we about covered it?
Yeah, so that's the editor. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have the analysis as well that I can
Yeah.
show
Thank
you.
you.
Um, yeah, so what you can see here is that we first have the highlight section, where the AI spits out the key takeaways. And as I mentioned, this is a framework for thinking about the study. A great way to brainstorm to understand quickly what we should focus on. And then you also have something which I'm excited about, it's personas. So the AI segments all of the different users into different buckets in terms of goals, attitudes, and behaviors. And depending on the study, this is also dynamically created to fit the purpose. So if this is a study around marketing, it would give you also marketing ideas to fix, to kind of target this kind of persona. And that's what we want to do more and more, to make this analysis dynamic. So it will kind of cross the last mile from data collection to action. So we'll also give you recommendations, outliers, and many more things. Then we have this section, which is more quantitative. So we do coding of all of the responses and put them into different buckets. And here you can start to quantify this qualitative, those qualitative conversations. And all of these buckets are generated by an AI. And you can open up and see the details to read the quotes. and click on them or listen to the conversations if you want to. Um, and
Uh,
then we also have the ability to chat with the data.
yeah, really interesting. Can I ask the citations? Would that be like, participant one or two, or is that like multiple participants potentially that they're citing here?
Yeah, so this is participant one, and you can click on that to make sure the AI is
Mm,
not just hallucinating, which I know is a big problem um,
right.
in using AI tools in general. But we try to make sure we cite everything and make it easy to see what it's basing its recommendations on.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the quick overview of our tool. I would say it's uh, early days. We are live with some great customers like Sony, UFC, BCG, and they really love the tool. But as a founder, you're always seeing the problems and the things that we can improve. And I think I'm really excited where this is gonna go. So we have a long roadmap of things we want to build that makes this product experience even better.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for that. Let me just bring us back together here. Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping to cover, and I learned something from our demo as well. Thank you. Um, you talked a little bit about what inspired you to create this. I guess I also wondered just what you found like more challenging to do, or something you're really proud of that yeah, we actually got it to do this, and it was amazing. So, what are some of the things you're thinking of there that are in the win columns now?
Yeah. So we did one study where the customer was asking me a specific technical term that I didn't understand myself. And then I just went into the chat and like asked, it was specifically about ready to art RTD drinks, like ready-made drinks or something like that. And I just asked the question to the AI and it knew the technical term. It was able to find like all of those conversations related to that term. And it was able to kind of give an analysis that was far superior than my own, um, based on me not having enough context. And so that is very interesting, where in some ways it can be superior already to
Hmm.
kind of market research firms
Yeah.
that don't have an understanding of the context in your business. But yeah, that was an
Right. Is it ready to drink? I think. Yeah. That's very cool.
yeah.
And I only had time to think about it while you're answering. So, um, well, the one thing I really did want to ask you about was your two things. One is sort of how you see your product evolving over time, and I, my question said in the next few years, and who knows, 2 years from now what it would be like. But I guess I both wanted to know how you see your tools evolving, and secondarily how you picture this discovery research and UX research changing because of the new possibilities.
Yeah. So our tool, I think, as I mentioned, it's early days. I think where we're going is being this repository of data, that and this kind of AI agent that knows everything, all the research you've done before, and so you can ask questions about previous research. And then it's also able to segment the customers that you care about. So you can create these almost synthetic users that the AI is able to extrapolate based on those conversations that it already has had with those users, and say, well, I would guess they would answer like this. And if you don't like the guess, then you can just click one button and it's able to go out and interview 50 more people that and ask those specific questions. And so that's kind of the vision we are heading towards. And I think this will be much like in coding, where AI has really started to
Hmm.
saturate and changed my life as
Right.
a software engineer. I I code 50% of the time with an AI assistant, and I can't do a lot of my work without it. And so we're going to see that kind of supercharging of productivity in a lot of other fields. And I think user research, consumer insights is definitely one of them.
Very cool. And actually, I guess one of the questions I had sort of related to that is, do you feel like this is the kind of thing that could empower the product owner or other folks who maybe aren't research specialists to be able to do this kind of research if on a certain level, and in other cases you would want some specialist as a researcher?
Yeah, I think that's a great framing. It's kind of research democratization that we're seeing, but I do think that for more advanced analysis, you're gonna need to have a dedicated user research person. And so really want to emphasize that this is not going to be a replacement. And I think user research is kind of similar to software engineering or lawyers in that the more the cheaper and like the faster and easier it is to do, the more demand there will be. Because really all like strategic decisions is based on some kind of customer input. And I think the more you can do of that, the better. And so I
Yeah.
think we're gonna see these user researchers kind of having an army of AIs that can help them with all sorts of different tasks, whether that's like interviewing or drafting of discussion guides or analysis. And I think that's where we're going. And probably
Excellent.
more user researchers, not less, in the
Okay.
future.
Fair enough. Alfred, thank you so much. This is everything I wanted to cover. If folks wanted to give your tool a try, can you just remind us how they could get started?
Yeah, so you can go on listenlabs.ai or reach out to me at alfred@listenlabs.ai. But you can request a demo on our website.
Great. Well, thank you again, Alfred, for sharing Listen Labs with us, and it's very impressive and comprehensive. So let me just sign off. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and keeping up with the latest AI for UX and product research. And of course, subscribe and if you enjoyed this video, and let us know what else you'd like us to feature next. And wishing you all brilliant insights with AI.